So what would you imagine if it put together a psychological thriller with a badass action movie and a full-on slasher film and a pure encapsulation of 1980s style? Well, you would get Adam Wingard's 2014 film, The Guest. Recently discharged from the army, David Collins unexpectedly shows up on the Petersons' doorstep, claiming to be their late son's best friend. Welcomed into their home, the well-mannered stranger becomes part of the family until a shocking wave of violence raises daughter Anna's suspicions that the mysterious ex-soldier is not quite what he seems. Soon the haunting truth behind who and what David really is crashes down upon everyone as his unstable psyche is triggered into a violent, instinctive response. So The Guest was produced on an estimated budget about $5 million and saw its limited US theatrical release in September of 2014, and I didn't get interested to see it until it hit home video in January of this year, which was shortly after I had already made my best movies of 2014 video, which is unfortunate because The Guest absolutely, positively would have made my top 10 best movies of 2014 list, because it is such a fun, thrilling, and completely interesting film, and how it meshes together all these unusual genres together in this fascinating, sort of escalating storyline that just like you're so pleasantly surprised in how this film moves from one thing to the next, that first you think it's one thing, then it turns into another thing, then it turns into yet another thing. So it's a very interesting film in that type of way. And apparently screenwriter Simon Barrett had toyed around with another screenplay before this, which was much more of a straightforward take on the thing, where a soldier comes back home with PTSD and goes along on this sort of complicated sort of revenge scheme of sorts. So kind of a Death Wish / First Blood type of hybrid you could imagine, and it'd probably make a pretty damn good movie in and of itself. But Barrett really couldn't get the script to work, and he just kind of never got it finished until Adam Wingard came along and introduced the ideas to flesh it out, to morph it into what it became with The Guest, which, like I said, is a very interesting film overall that is headed up by an absolutely fantastic actor in Dan Stevens. And apparently Stevens had been known for very starkly different styles of roles before this on British television and other things, that he absolutely wanted to break out and do something completely different from anything he'd done before. And he just shines so much in this film, and it is the fact that this film hinges so much on the performance of him in this character, that if he was not so damn talented to be able to shift the tone so subtly in this film and embody all the psychological aspects and the emotional states of this character of David, that the film just would not function the way it needs to, and do so many fun things and so many fascinating, moody type of things throughout the whole film, that it just would not have the intensity that it has. It wouldn't have the fun factor it has. All the things just would not hold together in a cohesive type of way if you didn't have the right, excellent actor at the helm of this film. And he is this character with such a great, smooth, charming charisma that he has a little bit of that southern accent in there, and just adds something to the character, that this guy just oozes so much charm and so much delightful quality about him, that he just seems a little bit off, that he seems a little bit too nice, a little too good to be true, that this guy just too humble, too generous in a certain way, that you can just see there's something just a little bit off but with this guy right from the beginning of the film. There's just something about him that doesn't fit, and just the subtleties of what Dan Stevens puts into the role just makes it so good to watch him work these scenes. It is just this sort of enigma that is so entertaining but also so captivating in a certain way, that he is an entertaining character because he's so fun to watch in this film, but there's that intensity with the character, the stare that he has, the subtle change of mood and everything just makes him such a mesmerizing character to behold. And like I said, Dan Stevens gets some great moments in this film where he gets to shift that tone, shift that mood of the character from that very friendly, gracious type of guy to a very intense and scary individual. There's even one long shot in the film just of Dan Stevens' face where you can subtly see the change of demeanor from one type of personality to the other, and even goes even back to the friendly guy at the end of the whole scene. It just has such a great performance in this film, and you can just see the unhinged, violent psyche kind of trembling underneath the surface of this guy. You can just see there's something a little bit shaken, a little bit unstable in there. Just very, like I said, subtle with the performance, but you can see something's kind of rumbling in his psyche and everything flowing around there that shouldn't really be there. That turmoil, whatnot, that turbulence in his mind and psychological makeup. It just, everything he does with this thing goes from such amazing different places, but most of all, a wholly intimidating type of character. When you finally see this character kind of cut loose and have some violent moments in the film, this guy is like Jason Bourne in certain ways. Like, if Jason Bourne was a serial killer, was like in the bar scene, is like thinking like Dalton from Roadhouse with a serial killer, this is what you'd pretty much get, this violent psychopath who's completely just gonna beat the shit out of people, break bones with no sort of empathy for anything. He's very much a sociopath in that type of way. But it's also very interesting how this is a character who's kind of like comes into life with this family and kind of helps them out all over the place. He's kind of helping everyone with their troubles and everything, with either work or home or relationships, or the kid with his bullies at school. Is like, this guy is actually coming in and helping them in a certain way until it becomes a violent threat to people around him, and obviously things start escalating and going into a completely different type of direction with the film. So it's like, it's a very fascinating character where it's like, you don't really know where this character is going from one beat to the next, and that's what makes the film so interesting, so compelling to watch, and makes Dan Stevens' performance so mesmerizing in a certain way that this guy has just got so much gravitas. But overall, it's just like Dan Stevens is eating up this role like you wouldn't believe, that he is enjoying the hell out of this. He's enjoying the psychosis of the character, the flip-flops of the tones and everything with this guy. Just like, he embraces the insanity of this character, that this is a guy completely unhinged, like I said, that is completely creepy and unpredictable, and just everything just keeps going along as the film escalates. So does his performance, that he embraces so many, just, he embraces the over-top quality that the film is leading up to, that the film ultimately becomes a little bit more ridiculous, a little bit silly here and there. It's like it's embracing its sort of B-movie exploitation type of roots, and Dan Stevens' performance completely reflects that well before the rest of the film starts to go into those sort of styles and tropes or whatnot. But it's wrapped up in such a fantastically stylish package with a fantastically awesome cast that you just can't help but love it. If you're someone who really loves those types of 80s slasher films where things got a little bit campy or whatnot, or a little bit silly, like, you know, it takes forever to kind of kill the killer, and, you know, when you think he's dead, he's not really dead. That type of stuff. Like, if you go into it and you enjoy that type of stuff, and you end up realizing that's exactly what this film is going for, you're going to love this film. And of particular note in the rest of the cast, I think Maika Monroe does a very authentic job with all the emotion she has to portray in this film as the character of Anna. That she really kind of brings out all that typical sort of teen angst type of stuff, but fills it with a lot of genuine emotion and real kind of relatable type of qualities. That she does fit very much into that really classic type of scream queen type of role, that she is the main female lead of the film all the way through to the climax, where she becomes a very assertive type of character, where he takes it upon herself to try to combat David and everything. And it's very interesting how things go along with the character dynamics and everything, that first she has very much an aversion to the character of David. She doesn't very much welcome him into their lives. But as things go along and he starts to kind of thread his way into everyone's lives, there's a physical attraction that gets sparked off, and she begins to warm up to him as he starts to get kind of charms her and everything. But obviously there's certain turning points in the film where she comes privy to certain knowledge about his backstory, or his supposed backstory in a certain case, and she begins to become much more weary of him, much more frightened of him, and it begins to escalate from there. But I think overall she does a very good job in this film, that she holds everything together very well on her end of things. And a couple of really nice gems in this film, two actors I really enjoy seeing. Leland Orser and Lance Reddick. I think they're both very good actors. So Lance Reddick in John Wick, he was the sort of concierge at the Continental Hotel, he's always a fun actor to watch. He just has a certain real good presence to him. I thought he did a really good job here as Major Carver. He just has, again, physical presence and a certain authoritative type of commanding sense to him and everything. And Leland Orser has always been a very enjoyable actor in my view, that he's done a lot of films all over the place, kind of a character actor in a certain way, and I thought he did a really good job here as Spencer, the father of the whole family, and just has a very genuine type of quality to him overall. I think everyone in the cast does a very strong, solid performance here. No one is a weak link anywhere, and everyone just holds everything up to the levels that they have to support the rest of the cast and the story overall. And I do think the film is very well directed by Adam Wingard, that really couldn't take just any director and mesh these different styles together and come out with something that is this well polished and well executed, that it meshes movies like The Stepfather and The Terminator and even Halloween. I could even throw in a little bit of Jason Bourne there with all these sort of military type of action with the film, just like very interesting type of ideas that no one would typically throw together. That, yeah, there's just so many different elements in this film that you put it in the hands of a director who is not very well skilled, who is not very well talented, or just doesn't quite have the cohesive nuance to be able to put something like this together. It just comes out as a sloppy, clunky mess. But obviously Wingard is a very talented director to be able to do that type of thing, and just obviously have a lead actor who can lead that charge forward with all the subtle different things that he's doing. Wingard just adds in so many different things with this, making this retro style very smart on screen, that he knows exactly what he's doing. It makes it very intelligent, that he's not falling into cliches or whatnot, but he's using the styles, the ideas, whatnot, and putting them into a very fresh package that is exciting and unpredictable, but also knows how to kind of amp things up to be very entertaining, that it really embraces the exploitation and B-movie type of roots that it has. And you can really kind of tell that Wingard was very heavily inspired by the work of John Carpenter, especially the late 70s through the 80s type of work, that you can definitely feel the influence on there. Especially, like, I felt the film felt a lot like Halloween 3. It's like, I'm watching it again, it's like, I really kind of want to watch Halloween 3 Season of the Witch again. Because oddly enough, the composer for this film used the exact same synthesizers that John Carpenter and Alan Howarth used to score Season of the Witch. So it's like, so much of the score, so much of the cinematography, everything in this film just embraces that style, and from a very educated type of point of view. That's not saying that someone throwing together a bunch of tropes, like I said. It's something that is very well schooled in that type of style and that tone, the atmosphere of those types of films, and really using it, really kind of understanding the artistry involved in creating those types of films. And like I said, the cinematography in this film I thought was very, very interesting in certain ways too, that it does have that very kind of typical these days orange-blue type of contrast or whatnot, but kind of picked up on something very interesting here, that in this film, Dan Stevens has these piercing blue eyes and these blonde highlights in this film, where the cinematography actually envelops itself in how the antagonist of the movie looks. And just like, because he just fits so well in the film, that everything is so vibrant with his eyes popping out and the hair and everything. And just the colors of the film themselves, even if it is a brightly lit daylight scene, you can still get that feel from the whole thing. There's still that subtle color timing in the film, the subtle lighting of it. And of course, later on, there's a lot of very vibrant type of sort of nightclub or bar scenes or stuff like that, where just like saturating things, especially in the climax of the film, that it completely goes for that vibrant, very colorful type of 80s aesthetic with all the lights and everything going on in the whole thing, the production design, all of it just is completely from something you would have seen from the climax of a 1980s slasher film, in this sort of Halloween party setting where you got the House of Mirrors, which that looks fantastic, how they photograph so many of those moments in that environment and everything, using the reflections in so many different ways. I'm a guy who loves a mirror gag, and we do it that well. I love it. And just the contrast of all the different colors and the saturations. I thought they did a spectacular job with the cinematography in the film, even though a lot of the 80s types of films had a lot more of that grit and grain in the type of film stock, and the visual look of the film was a lot more gritty than it is with the modern sleekness of this film. But, you know, if you want to make something that kind of has that freshness, kind of does that, it's not completely throwback, it still has a modern feel to it, you definitely go and kind of marry those types of things together. And I thought they did it pretty well in this film. That, yeah, probably would have worked if it had a little bit more like smoke and grain and type of stuff, make it a little bit more dirty in a certain way. But if you want to go for something that is very much John Carpenter inspired, you really go for that sleekness, that really kind of elegance in a certain way. All the great cinemascope type of compositions and how they frame everything, and just how they make all the action flow together, and just how everything is lit and shot and everything is very much evocative, like a Dean Cundey type of thing from the early 80s. I thought they did a very good job with the cinematography of the film, and even the John Carpenter thing goes even further, like I said, into the score of the film, that it very much, in so many different ways, feels like sort of like a Halloween 3 score, that it just atmospheric and ambient type of feel, even with a little bit of a Tangerine Dream type of thing in there, where you get a couple of heavy guitars and a few little music cues here and there. There's a little bit like, that sounds like something I would have heard in Thief or whatnot. Just like, it works so well. Just these, they just hit it all perfectly with the score, the songs in the film. Just like I had to get the soundtrack for this thing, because it's just so very, very pulsating type of music with the electronic synthesizer type of pop that this film employs with the soundtrack, the selection of songs it has. It just like, it feels so 80s in a certain way, again with a sort of modern type of strength to it, certain modern type of punch and sleekness to it. But overall, I thought the soundtrack in this film, the cinematography, the whole package of this film came together in such a great way. And apparently the film was originally 20 minutes longer before it hit test screenings, and contained a lot more exposition about David, his backstory, who he was, where he came from, all this type of stuff to explain exactly what he was in terms of all this psychological makeup and all this kind of military experiments and training and stuff. And filmmakers really didn't like any of that stuff, and they were glad when the test screening audiences didn't like it either, because they felt the less you really know about this character, the lot more fascinating he is to watch. And it's like, when you over-explain something, you kind of lose the appeal of it. When you have a little bit more mystery with this character, that's what makes him fascinating. That's what makes him compelling in a certain way. And they added in a few extra scenes because they felt like there was a little less in the cut they did after the test screenings. So they added in some more stuff with the military to kind of set things up a little bit more, instead of just kind of dropping the military stuff right at everyone's doorstep near the third act of the film. So a little bit of tweaking and retooling here to kind of get the story to be what it needed to be effective for everyone. And it just like, I think they hit everything just about right in that type of way. And just how this film builds and escalates and just moves its story forward and its plot to different directions and everything, to a very kind of, very over-the-top sort of kitschy type of ending that just like, once it happened, the first time I watched, is like, I love that. I love that. It's like, this is the absolute point where it's like, This film just completely embraced that, and it's like, this is what makes me love the movie. That just goes all out, doesn't pull any punches whatsoever, that it knows exactly what it wants to be, and goes out and becomes that, and just like, this is a type of film that absolutely will become, almost destined to become a cult classic, because at a very limited theatrical release, didn't get a whole lot of money from it, because we released in a couple of theaters. And so it's a film that's definitely going to gain traction by word of mouth and buzz and all that type of stuff. People passing around is like, this type of thing is what gets this film the type of traction, type of legacy that it possibly could get in the future. And just like, if you really enjoy those types of kind of over the top and really kind of fun type of thrilling action movies or psychological thrillers or slasher flicks from the 80s that just kind of had a little bit of an over top but still kind of earnest type of feel to it, that this film is not winking at the camera, it's not trying to be satire or whatnot, it's just like it's paying a great homage to that type of film. So many different types of films, obviously, because it's meshing all its genres together to such a almost perfect type of package. Like I said, first time I watched it, it's like when all the military scenes kind of coming in, it just felt like you're kind of diverting from what I'm really enjoying here. That is keeping on a nice track and then kind of diverts off to something, and then it kind of merges back into it. So it's like, I don't know how else you could really kind of put it together if you're going to do that type of film where it kind of goes in one direction, veers off to another thing, and just goes full bore into something completely different. So it's probably handled as best it possibly could be, but I didn't say it was absolutely 100% A+ material, but I just like, it's very fun. It's very thrilling. If you just watch Dan Stevens' performance in this film, that he just eats it up, man. And it's such the best possible way. He's not chewing scenery like a Bruce Payne in the Highlander Endgame or something like that. This guy's like, he's embracing every quality that this character gives him, and he's enjoying it. That he's doing everything that the film needs him to do. He's doing it so well, and he's just such a talented actor to make this film everything that it needs to be. So I'm gonna say, definitely check out The Guest. I enjoyed it a whole lot, and definitely, if you enjoy the review, thumbs up. Sorry I'm falling apart here, but comments below if you enjoyed this film. Let me know exactly what just embraced you so much about this film, what really grabbed you about it, just what you enjoyed about it overall, and what is your favorite 80s psychological thriller or slasher film that's not part of a franchise, a standalone type of thing that just like a Terror Train or Night Prowler or New York Ripper type of thing, something like that, or something just completely off the deep end, you know? Whatever you got, throw it at me. I love to hear about it, and I'll be working on a review for Rambo shortly, so hope you guys have a good time, and sorry for rambling on, so I'm gonna get out of here and get some rest. So take care, guys. Bye bye.